Welcome to Courtney on Health, brought to you on malcolmpresents.com. Anyway, take it away, Max.
So here we are, still in the new year and all going nuts, and I'll bring that in a bit. I had to do that. The whole thing makes me want to do that. So hello, Courtney, and hello, Malcolm, and welcome to Courtney on Health, the Zoomcast podcast series, which focuses on one's overall well-being with tips on nutrition and exercise given by Courtney Gravenese, registered dietitian with a Master's of Science degree in nutrition and applied physiology. Courtney is an experienced nutritional and health consultant in the New York metro area and beyond. Beyond, we still have to define that. And we'll guide you on a path to wellness and health. So let's get into this topic. And you'll get it the minute I say this, or the second I say it. Planters peanuts are a staple in the nut industry. Do their slogans become one with the nut? A nut above, instinctively good. And the one in the UK is deliciously nutritious, all caps. Does that make you want to crave peanuts? When researching this, and I found something I had to just put in 2020, Mr. Peanut ceased to be the mascot of the company, only to be resurrected in a Super Bowl spot titled Tribute. And Mr. Peanut was reborn as Baby Nut, a little legume who carries with him the spirit and wisdom of Mr. Peanut. I guess they were trying to give Baby Yoda a run for its money, I would imagine. If you prefer almonds, then Blue Diamond almonds are more than a snack, and they want you to crave victoriously. That's a slogan.
Crave victoriously?
Crave victoriously. All to put you in a nutty mood, I think. So if you're not making nuts part of your diet, you are missing out on good nutrition, as nuts have many health benefits. They are a good source of protein and contain some heart-healthy substances. Nuts have good fats, which help lower bad cholesterol. And Courtney will give us information on all of that. So the Planters peanut ad, instinctively good, is really spot on because they are good. So let's get some nutritious info from Courtney so that we can all go nuts. So that
was all afternoon, but we shan't.
We shan't. So we got to get into the nitty gritty of the nuts.
I know.
Substance.
So let's start with nuts. First of all, hello to you both.
Hi, y'all.
Let's start with peanuts, since you are mentioning them first.
Mm-hmm.
So for a couple of reasons. One, I feel like the peanut has received, and peanut products have received a lot of undue hate over the years for a variety of reasons. It's not as nutritious. It's, we'll talk about sort of some of that and sort of break that down a little bit. But it's also technically not a nut. It is not in the nut, tree nut family. It is technically in the legume family, which some people may or may not know. From a nutritional perspective, it is really pretty much on par with many of the other tree nuts. So in terms of mineral content, in terms of protein, in terms of the quality and type of fat that's in them, you can consider it on par nutritionally. It's just important to know it's in a separate category. And just very, very quickly, from an allergy perspective, you can have somebody who's allergic to just peanuts and not tree nuts, vice versa, all of them. And a word of note that the FDA just included, I know we're talking about mostly nuts, but we always throw seeds in there too, just included sesame as one of the top allergens that has to be on labels now. So good news for parents of kiddos with sesame allergies or individuals with sesame allergies. So one of the issues that I hear, and it is a known issue with regard to peanuts, is that because they are grown underground as opposed to in trees, they are particularly susceptible to a fungus called aflatoxin. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of that. And aflatoxin is a fungus. It grows very rapidly in warm, moist climates, which is where peanuts tend to grow, peanut crops tend to grow. So it doesn't mean that all other nuts don't get aflatoxin. It just means that peanuts are a little bit more prone to it. What people need to know is that peanut products are scrutinized and tested very carefully to detect any of that aflatoxin. So it is an extremely low risk of being contaminated with that fungus the way we test, certainly in this country. So I feel like peanuts are great. They're one of the least expensive nuts that are out there. Like I said, tons of mineral. In fact, most nuts and seeds are amazing sources of vitamin E, magnesium, zinc, copper, thiamine, which is B1, flavonoids, phytosterols, so many good reasons why peanuts and tree nuts should be included, and seeds, of course, in the diet. I wanted to really kick off the year with this topic because, you know, we're trying to, like, here are the reasons why, here's a way to make it a little bit easier. And I do want to talk about sort of more economical ways to pull them in, because what I hear a lot, aside from peanuts, because peanuts tend to be the most reasonably priced, the cost of nuts is it's pricey.
Very high.
So, you know, even if you buy, you know, don't laugh. I've got a friend of mine who, like, you know, she's like, there's no way, girl, you eat through like all of the, we do, that is the Costco size, yes.
Oh my God.
Size of walnuts. There are ways to, you know, buy them in a much more fiscally responsible, way.
Would bulk be that one of the ways to do that too?
What's that one?
Buying some of the nuts in bulk.
Thank you for bringing that up, Maxie. Thank you. So we'll go there now. So yes, generally buying in bulk is a more economical way to buy a lot of different things: grains, seeds, nuts. However, the first thing I would recommend is that you know your store very, very well. Is it kept clean? What's the turnover? Are the containers where the nuts are stored pretty much contained? And I won't say airtight because that's not necessarily feasible. But is it going to be sealed off from things like dust, particles? Here comes Cymbaloo, vermin. So it's very important that your store is kept clean. If you don't know that information, I would really recommend buying in, like, if you don't have a big box store like Costco or BJ's near you, which is where the best priced bagged nuts are like this, I would say look in stores like even Giant, Stop and Shop, even Target are now selling, I don't know if you guys can see this, these larger containers of not only mixed nuts, but individual nuts, peanuts, and things like that. And what that means for the consumer is a sealed product, so safety and freshness is preserved, and the cost may be, you get a cost break because you're not buying individual smaller serving sizes.
Right.
These are great. They're great in a pinch. They really, really are. But whenever you buy these snack sizes of them, the price, you know, you tend to, you know, to get it in terms of price.
Trader Joe's also is a good place that I find. I mean, it's much less than a lot of
Where
other
are they?
stores.
Yeah.
Is there any difference?
I'm a big fan of Trader Joe's. Not everybody has one near them. So if you
Right.
have one, definitely look, because they have some of the best nut and seed prices like
Definitely.
around.
Right,
So
definitely.
definitely.
I
look there.
always wondered, is there nutritionally, number one, is there any difference of buying the nut with a shell on or the nut that's been shelled? Do they lose anything by being exposed? Like, you know, you bought the big peanuts, they're all shelled, or the walnuts, they're all in a shell. I can buy walnuts shelled or peanuts shelled. Now, number one, is there any difference nutritionally if they've been pre-shelled?
Very, very little difference nutritionally. Because they're very high in minerals, some vitamins as well. But the typical vitamins that are easy to destroy, Cymbaloo, excuse me, honey, Yeah,
I love.
you're right on the screen there, buddy. Okay.
okay.
Typically, the vitamins that are very easy to destroy with air exposure are not those found in nuts and seeds. So from a nutrition perspective, no. From a freshness perspective, absolutely. If you're buying them shelled already, and they're not in a sealed container like this where you can close up, or in a bag like this, you're going, you may lose some of that freshness for sure.
How about economically? Because when we buy of course, it's a shell. They conclude the weight of the shell, which is probably more than the nut itself.
Right. So there's always a convenience versus, cost weight perspective. So I will say, even with the extra weight from the shell included, nuts that are not shelled for you are going to be definitely less expensive. Even think about a chestnut, which, by the way, happens to be the lowest fat nut that's out there. It's pretty much pure protein. So, when castañas, they're called in Italian, you can certainly buy them shelled. They're widely available, particularly this time of year. So shelled is super convenient and a great way to use them, but you pay a premium to have them shelled and put in a jar or a container for you.
Yeah. Two things. Number one, sometimes I like them when they're not shelled because it lowers my eating. Like with the peanuts, if I get shelled peanuts, I'm grabbing handfuls of peanuts and just chomping them down. If I have to shell it, I slow up. I don't eat it.
So that's what you do at the baseball games, huh? You buy the regular shelled
yeah.
peanuts, and hey, that's part of the fun. And then throwing the shells underneath the seat. What do you do with the shells at the ball game?
It absolutely does slow you down. One of the tips I often recommend for my clients is to pre-measure it out. It is super easy, just like you said, Malcolm, to blow through a lot if you're not paying attention. So that quarter cup, palm full, 1 ounce serving size is really about what you're looking for, and that will hold you at roughly that 200 calorie range, depending on the nut that you're consuming. So you really want to try and stick to that amount, but you're getting a lot. And when I mean a lot, I mean you're getting a lot of nutrition and a lot of staying power. Satiety factors with nuts in particular is very, very high. So you will feel full very quickly on, I know a quarter of a cup seems like a small amount, but if you just slow that pace down, you will find that they're very, very filling.
Yeah, I like walnuts, cashews, almonds. What's the difference in terms of the nutrients in the nuts and seeds? Are there a difference? Is one better than the other, or almonds better than walnuts, or walnuts better than cashews?
Well, it's interesting you say that. So just like I mentioned, so generally you can all consider them all very, very good sources of those things we just mentioned: vitamin E and magnesium, and B1 and zinc. Some of them have different protein, fat, and vitamin or mineral content, but not enough to say you must have this nut in your diet. The only exception to that, and I'll talk about some of those differences in a second, would be, and we've spoken about walnuts before, and even though walnuts and pecans taste similar, walnuts are really extremely unique in terms of their fat, the type of fat. It's very high in the polyunsaturated fatty acid, omega-3 fatty acid, which makes it extremely unique. There really is no other tree nut that compares to the level of omega-3 fatty acid, the plant version of that's in walnuts. Having said that, that doesn't mean that's the only nut you should be having. Don't feel like you got to choke them down and don't have any of the others, because a Brazil nut, for example, is exceedingly high in selenium. Almonds happen to be a particularly high source of calcium, along with like sesame seeds are very, very high in calcium as well. Cashews also happen to be high in vitamin K, which is not typically a vitamin seen in large amounts in other vitamins, nuts or seeds.
What's vitamin K good for?
Vitamin K is, you have to think of that as your clotting vitamin. So it's really important for coagulation of your blood. So that's worth mentioning for anybody who either has someone in their family who is on an anticoagulant like warfarin or Coumadin, because you always want to be careful of, it doesn't mean don't have vitamin K. The message is a steady vitamin K intake. So you want to make sure that that individual doesn't have a disproportionate amount of cashews or any vitamin K food in their diet. It will throw off their bleeding time.
Every time I think of clotting, I think of the fibrinogen. Is that the thing in the blood that promotes?
Yes, yeah.
clotting?
So there's lots of things, and by the way, there are many things that affect clotting factor. It just happens to be, like I said, a unique vitamin that's in cashews. A lot of people are using cashews now if they're trying to experiment more with plant-based recipes, because it lends itself nicely to like creamy type recipes. So if you're trying to make a vegan or a plant-based sauce without using any dairy products, it lends itself nicely to that. So, some that are particularly high in iron. Now, again, seeds generally are going to be high in iron, and there's all a little bit of iron inside seeds and nuts, but pistachios happen to be particularly high. Cashews, like we just mentioned, pine nuts, which all nuts are expensive. Pine nuts happen to be particularly expensive. So I feel like a place like Trader Joe's, if you could get them at Costco, the Kirkland brand, or BJ's, or a store, and get them in bulk and store them in your freezer, because that's a nice nut, has a very mild, almost sweet flavor to it, to include in a lot of like pasta dishes and sauces and pesto and things like that. It's just very expensive to buy in small amounts. So buy it big, store it in your freezer so it stays fresher, keep it in a nice airtight bag or container to keep the air out.
Yeah, now on a practical level, I find the Brazil nuts almost impossible to eat because it's hard to crack the shell and get it. When I crack it and really use my strength, it breaks up into pieces.
Yeah.
It's not like simple like the peanut. I can shell very easily. The pistachio I can shell, but the Brazil, I find it almost impossible. Very frustrating.
It is a very thick shell, and it happens to be one of the nuts that I do see it occasionally, but in all of the nut mixes that I've seen or purchased, it's typically not in that mix. So like this one, for example, which by the way, the Good and Gather brand from Target is a great line in that store. If you've got a Target near you, I would highly recommend a variety of different products, but they're mixed nut mix. So these are unsalted, and I'll talk about salted and other things done to the nuts in a little bit. But even in here, Malcolm, and there are filberts, hazelnuts in here, which are wonderful. But again, they can be pricey, and they include them in their mixed nut combo, which is nice.
I gotta check. Like I definitely have to check that out, because I'm always looking for nuts.
No. And you always find them.
Yeah, and I could say I won't say it. I was gonna say, I'm looking at you, Malcolm. So but anyway, yeah, there's a, in terms of just want to get this in quickly, that the you were talking about blood clots, but it could also help with blood pressure, and it lowers the unhealthy levels of LDLs or bad cholesterol. How does it, what's in the nuts that do that, and how does that affect you?
Well, so there's a couple of things going on. There's nuts and seeds are good sources of fiber, and again, varying degrees depending on the nut, but just assume that generally they're all pretty good sources of it. So particularly soluble fiber, if you recall, has a great ability to bind up bad cholesterol and help eliminate it from the body. So that's one reason for it. The other reason is the type of fat that's in nuts. So obviously I'm not saying something that folks don't already know. Nuts are not only a great source of protein, but for the most part, they're very high in fat as well. But that type of fat is the best type of fat for your heart. So it's mostly some combination of either monounsaturated fat polyunsaturated fat, or a mix of those two. So they're almost all, with the exception of walnuts, like we mentioned, that one's higher in omega-3, which is a polyunsaturated. They're all high in monounsaturated fats, which have been associated with improved heart health, assuming that you're replacing things like trans fats, and some of the, the worst saturated fats in the diet. That shift leads to a better lipid profile and potentially better cardiac outcomes.
Right. Wow.
So,
yeah, so that's it. No, if I would take it if you're some clients are heart patients, that's something you would suggest to them, I would imagine.
Oh,
Diet.
Aside from peanut butter, what other recipes are there for nuts? By the way, the peanut butter, which I love, is the Costco peanut butter, which the organic.
Yeah, it's a great brand, and I get it. So don't be afraid to, you don't have to buy necessarily a brand name, but do look at the ingredients and choose one that doesn't have a lot of added sugar and doesn't have a lot of salt to it. A little bit of salt is fine. So all of the ones that I have here and that I typically recommend to my clients would be unsalted. But that's for basically like cooking and baking options. I would say if you're going to snack on something, a little bit of salt. And again, look at that nutrition fact label. You want that to guide you in terms of your purchase. You want to keep that as low as possible, but a little bit of salt, assuming of course you haven't been told by your healthcare provider to really just tamp down on sodium levels. A little bit of salt is going to be just fine.
They have some nut products. They have wasabi, they have chili, that stuff like that's added to it. And that kid, I don't know, I think I tried wasabi one time somewhere, but I'm a fan of the regular nuts, not the chili nuts.
So Malcolm, to answer your question more completely, some of the ways I encourage my clients to include nuts it would be in obviously you can bake with them, so you can put them into breads and things like that for sure. You can mix it into yogurt. You can put it into cereal. You can add a handful, which is one of the reasons why I go through so much of them here in my house. I use quite a bit in my salads to kind of bump up my salad a little bit. I add a little, that it adds fat, it adds healthy fat, it adds protein to it. So that's a great way. You can make certain pestos and dishes. You can walnut crust or almost any nut crust fish, chicken, meals like that is a great way to include it. And again, because it's a healthier type of fat, you're really getting the best. Don't worry as much about oh my gosh, there's so many calories in it. We know that it is calories, but you're not using a ton of it. You're using it just to coat it, or maybe a handful in your salad or a handful in your yogurt. And as long as you be mindful of how much, you're not going to get into too much trouble, but do be aware of it.
Right. There's I guess you put it in like a food processor to crush it down a bit, and then you can just use it like you would use like a panko breadcrumb or something. And
absolutely.
A little off the topic, are all calories created equal? Do some calories metabolize better in your body than other calories?
In short, a calorie is a calorie is a calorie. However, and we could do a whole episode on this, just like certain calories are going to fill you more, and if those calories fill you more and keep you from overeating, the net result at the end of the day is you are going to consume fewer calories. So 2,000 calories of mostly refined carbohydrate versus a mixed intake of healthy fats, some good protein, and better carbohydrates in the mix even though calories are calories, you're going to get different results in terms of weight management and then what it's doing in the body, inflammation, etc., with those same calories. So
there's a lot to say for having very a variety of things that are hopefully plant-based and a little protein from any kind of meats. I mean, I don't eat red meat basically at all for the most part. I mean,
So-
once in a blue moon, usually on a birthday, you know, there's a steak involved, but
Yeah.
that's it. I mean, it's just something I've completely, you know, after my little ticker thing, I just completely got off of.
Yeah.
But you know,
Yeah.
there are other proteins I use, but I don't use that. I don't
No,
even miss it.
Yeah, going off topic again. I could never stop eating meat at all. I mean, there's nothing like a nice thick sirloin steak, and I have it either rare or medium rare. You know, with no fat.
Well,
It
listen,
is so
every
delicious.
once in a while, you know what? I think there's some wiggle room in the way people eat, and every once in a while, it's totally fine, Malcolm.
Right.
So,
With the
but
baked potato.
before you give me the hook and take me off some of my favorite snacks, I just because they're super easy using pretty much any type of nut butter. But peanut butter is often on sale. Is, you know, piece of apple slices dipped in, you know, again, portion out about 2 tablespoons of nut butter, peanut butter, cashew butter, almond butter, you know, apple, sliced it up, dipped in there. And if you really want to get a little extra crunch in there, crack up some, chop up some, fill in the blank, almonds, pistachios, walnuts, and then give it a little dip inside there. That is a powerhouse snack. It's got carbohydrate, it's got healthy fat, it's got some protein in there, and it really covers all those bases, and it will keep you full, and it's very satisfying. So it's one of my go-to snacks, and I'm not a big chocolate fan, but one of my recommended treats for folks would be things like dark chocolate covered either almonds or, you know, those are the ones I typically see, but it's a great way to get your sweet fix. Get a little dark chocolate in there, and then get a little staying power with the nuts that are underneath the chocolate. Again, measure them out. Don't eat the whole bag, just a few.
Right.
So,
Again, I'm gonna defer to Trader Joe's on that because they have a
Yep.
really good. Trader Joe's has a dark chocolate, have dark chocolate almonds, and
Yeah.
again, one of my favorite places. So they have good
Absolutely.
stuff.
There are great places. So again, if you have one of them near you, absolutely. But don't hesitate to look in your big chain store like ShopRite, like Stop and Shop, like Giant, whatever you have near you. Go into their nut and seed department and cruise the aisle and see what they've got. And I'm finding more and more places that are selling them like this or in a bigger bag. And it's the best way to sort of bump up that nut intake in a more economical way.
And there's Ralph's out in LA, right? Kroger's, Ralph's.
Kroger is a
That's it,
chain.
Kroger's.
What? It's a chain, right?
Yeah.
You know, when you say you're going to Ralph's, people think you're going to Ralph's house, but no, you're going to Ralph's supermarket. So yeah, me and Ralph are one when we go to LA. Yeah. Well, Trader Joe's though was the first time I was ever in a Trader Joe's was in LA, and it started there. That's where they started, and it wasn't far from my brother's house. And he goes, "You got to try this place," and it was kind of like a hippy dippy original first store. It was like the hippy dippy spot, and they had like all this good stuff, and it just took off into what it is now.
Yeah, and they're pretty reasonable. I mean, they're not really.
Yes, the
high priced.
prices are. I mean, it's really amazing that they give really. You don't know which brands they're using necessarily because they
Right.
say it's their own brand, but you know, 9 out of 10, it's a very good product for a decent price.
A lot of things like Costco is private label. They buy overages from well-known manufacturers, but
Right.
it's very good. By the way, just a plug for Trader Joe's. They have the nicest people working there.
Mm.
I mean they really select who they are. They're so friendly. In a lot of the stores, you don't find that.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
They go
really know
out
their
of the
stuff. So no, it's good. There are good options there. So if you've got one near you, definitely check it out.
check it out. Check it out.
Anyway, guys, do you have any parting words? Because
Any parting words?
Me? Are you asking Maxine? Are you asking me? Oh no. So
not closing partings, things that you wanted to add.
Any quick
absolutely.
any quick things to add, and then we could peace out.
Then we shall, wrap it all up. So measure out the nuts, make sure you don't go, don't eat out of a bag. Very, very important. They're super healthy, but just like anything, too much can be crazy. Hold the line on something like macadamia nuts, which are hands down the highest in fat, and it actually has the most saturated fat, but they're expensive anyway. And just get creative and experiment. Find the ones you like. Don't feel like you have to just have, one, and experiment a little bit. Lots of recipes out there. So go ahead, check out stuff online, and experiment with the whole, seed nut combination, and really try and make it a goal to try and up the nut and seed intake. Your heart will thank you. So
Right,
do it.
macadamia nuts are a lot. Hawaii, there's a lot of macadamia nuts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So if you go to Hawaii, I guess you can cheat a little bit.
Absolutely.
Because that's where it is, and that's
everybody that comes back from Hawaii usually get a box of macadamia nuts.
yeah, something like that.
Chocolate covered.
Yes, I still have the little hula girl that moves back and forth in the sunlight. So
Anyway, Max,
don't
take us
ask
out.
me. All right. So anyway, thanks for joining us for Courtney on Health. To get more info, follow Courtney on her Facebook page, which is Courtney on Health, on Instagram and TikTok at CLG Wellness. Visit her website, CourtneyGrevenese.com. For more shows, go to MalcolmPresents.com and theManyShadesOfGreen.com. This has been Courtney on Health, Smart Sound Nutrition, Strong Safe Fitness, and we'll catch you again next time.
Catch you next time. Have a great week.
And my last slogan is nuts to you and have
Right.
fun.
Go nuts. No.
Bye.
Bye.